Hi there, and welcome. I am delighted that you tuned in because honestly, I've been looking forward to this all weekend. So, why poetry? Well, there's a couple of different reasons. It's a really good opportunity for self expression and also reflection. It's an outlet for creativity. It can be fun and even therapeutic if you have too many thoughts in your head. So, why not poetry? That's the real question. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to three amazing humans who are part of the reason I love poetry so much. My fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Taylor, my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Avila, and Mrs. Day, who allowed me to do a poetry unit in her fourth grade class as part of my master's program. They all made learning and teaching poetry so much fun, and their passion has always inspired me. So thanks to those amazing humans. I can't help but think of my favorite Robert Frost poem as I sit here with this amazing virtual background. I wish I could be at camp, but unfortunately right now I can't, so we're just making the best of what we've got. So anyway, my favorite Robert Frost poem. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. Anyway, we've got miles to go before we run out of time today, so let's get started. The first poem I'm going to talk about is an acrostic poem. This is one of my favorite. It's very easy to write, and I'm sure that you've seen these at camp before. So there's a couple of things that you want to do to get started writing an acrostic poem. First, you're going to pick a topic that you want to write about. I chose counselors. Next, you'll write the word vertically down the page, letter by letter, COUNS, and so on. Next, you're going to brainstorm some ideas that come to you about that topic. Then you're going to organize your ideas using the letters that you've started with on the page until you've created a poem. You're going to have to fill in any missing letters, of course, but the brainstorm is a good way to get started. So I've taken the liberty of writing an example for you. Compassionate mentors, outgoing and friendly, understand positive youth development practices, neatest people when you get to know them, share the best parts of themselves for the benefit of children, excited for each of their campers to arrive, leading fun activities and facilitating friendship opportunities, operating as a team to pull off a rewarding summer experience for all, responsible young adults, safe spaces to experience new growth and overcome challenges. Counselors. There's my acrostic poem for you. Next up, I want to talk about haikus. These are traditional Japanese-based poems. They're 3 lines, and they typically have a syllable pattern of 5, 7, 5. So I've written one for you. How I long for camp. You can count the syllables. How I long for camp. Sorry, my screen is flipped. This is really challenging for me. So you can read it. How I long for camp. Campers dashing to and fro, 7 syllables there. Counselors looking on, and we end with 5 syllables there. So counting your syllables is sometimes tricky, but you're just going to sound out your words, and that'll help you get to the 5, 7, 5. I like haikus. They're so short that it's kind of like a brain puzzle. How can I say what I want to say? How can I sum up how much I'm longing for camp in 17 syllables? It's challenging, but it's really fun. These are some of my favorites, and they're really quick. The next type of poem that we are going to talk about is called a limerick, also a personal favorite of mine. I like limericks because they're silly, they're just 5 lines, and sometimes they're even nonsensical. They were made popular by Edward Lear, who wrote a book in the 1800s called The Book of Nonsense, and of course, they're just fun. I used to write them all the time as a kid, but here's one that I put together for our demonstration today about camp. There once was a lifeguard named Kate. She let kids in and out of the gate. She calls Buddy check, get on the pool deck, jump back in because the water is great. So you'll notice that there was some rhyming in there. When you're doing a limerick, the first 2 lines usually rhyme with each other, and the last line as well. So lines A, B, and E all rhyme. Also, when you're doing limericks, there is a typical syllable pattern. The guidelines are that the first 2 lines are going to be 8 or 9 syllables, and that's not right. Yes, it is. The first two lines are usually 8 or 9 syllables. The third and fourth line, line C and line D, are usually 5 or 6 syllables. And then the final line goes back to 8 or 9 syllables and it rhymes with those first two lines. So again, I'll read it to you one more time so you can see that rhyme pattern and try counting the syllables as I go along and see if I followed the rules. There once was a lifeguard named Kate. She let kids in and out of the gate. She calls Buddy Check, get on the pool deck. Jump back in because the water is great. Love limericks. The first one I ever wrote was about a little girl named Dottie. I still remember it very well. It was a very silly poem, but that's why I love limericks. All right, so the next couple that I'm going to talk about are much longer, so I'm not going to, I haven't written one to share with you yet today. Perhaps I will during the week because I just love to write poems. So there's an ode, and you may have heard of an elegy. Typically that's a poem that you've written when you've lost something or you're feeling or mourning loss. An ode is similar in that you're writing about something, you know, in reflection mode, but you don't necessarily have to have lost it. So if I were to write one right now, I think I would write an ode to a camp nurse. Our camp nurses are really special folks and they do nursing all year round. So I'm sure right now they've got a lot on their plate and I'm thinking of them. So perhaps I'll write an ode to a camp nurse. And maybe even our camp kitchen staff, you know, they often do food service all year long. And so they might be also considered working right now. So that might be nice to write an ode to a kitchen staff. Next, there are rhyming poems. These are really fun. You can ask our craft director. I love to rhyme. I will quite often just walk around and talk and rhyme. And, you know, occasionally there's a Grinch moment where you're like, oh no, I'm speaking in rhyme. But that's not me. I love it. So there's all kinds of different rhyme patterns. And so you can do when the lines all rhyme together. So you have a rhyme pattern A, or you can alternate. So you could do A, B. So every time there's an A, those lines rhyme. Every time there's a B, those lines rhyme. And you can use as many letters as you want, depending on how complex your poem is. You can make any rhyme scheme that works for you. So if we go back to our example in the limerick, we used A, B, A. So those first two lines rhyme. Then we go to a different pattern. So we have check and deck. Those rhyme. So those are our B's. And then we go back to great, which rhymes with Kate and gate. So that's an A. A, B, A. And then the final one I'm going to talk about real quick is a free verse poem. So there's no metrical or rhyming or syllable restrictions on a free verse poem. You can write just for the sake of writing, whatever comes to you. These are very freeing and open and, you know, give you a lot of creative leeway there. So free verse poems are really fun too. And so if you're getting down to writing a poem, try and spice it up a little bit. There are a lot of literary elements that you can use to try and breathe more life into your poem and make it a little more fun. So I'll talk about a couple of my favorite ones, but there's tons out there. So the first one is imagery. When you're writing, try and focus on your senses. Put the image out there so that your reader can feel and see what you're seeing. So what are you smelling? What are you seeing? What are you touching? What are you tasting in this poem that you're writing? Alliteration is when you use the same letter over and over and over again. So Crazy Corinne created kooky creations, you know, I'm using that lettering over and over again. That's alliteration. Similes and metaphors. This is when you compare two things. A simile, you compare them using like or as. I flew like a butterfly. I use like, so that's a simile. A metaphor would be when you compare two things, but you don't use that like or as word. I am a bird. I didn't say like or as, that's more of a metaphor. Tautology is kind of a fun one. It's when you repeat the same idea, word, or concept, small phrase over and over again, you know, more than once. So normally this is considered redundant. You don't need to say the same thing twice. But hey, this is poetry. We can do what we want, so go for it. Use tautology in your poems. Point of view can be a fun one. Try writing a poem as if you were your pet. You're home on quarantine. How is your pet dealing with this? Seeing, how is the dog, you know, thinking about quarantine when their humans are home so much? Or how about the goldfish? Are they seeing things they wouldn't normally see? Try writing a poem from the point of view even of an inanimate object. Those are pretty interesting. Give that one a try. Onomatopoeia. This is a good bonus word, parents, if you're giving your kids a spelling test. Onomatopoeia is when you're using words that describe the sounds in your poem. So click, clack, pop, snap, crackle, those kinds of words. So that's onomatopoeia. Well, unfortunately, I think we're about out of time for today, but I really want to thank you for joining. This has been a lot of fun. I know that we're all struggling out there and, trying to get some work in. So hopefully you can have a little fun, take a creative break, and write a poem. I can't wait to see your literary works of art, because I wrote about camp because that's what I love and that's what I'm thinking about right now. You don't have to write about camp. You can write about anything that's on your mind. You can write about camp if you want to. I'd love to read those. But take the creative freedom to write about whatever you'd like. Just write something. It's a really good opportunity to unwind, to get some thoughts out, to try and make sense of something, or just to have fun. I like to write little limericks for friends, or, we write the acrostic poems for our staff sometimes to appreciate them. Can you imagine writing an acrostic poem for a local nurse or for someone around the community, describing how wonderful they've been during this time for you? What a special gift. So I definitely challenge you to write a poem for yourself or for someone else. Remember, we'd love to see them if you'd like to share. Challenge by choice. Definitely write, only share if you're comfortable. If you are going to share, please make sure you keep it 4HA appropriate to be shared with everyone and with children, of course. And if you do share, please remember that someone put a lot of work into that, and so please be kind. We don't always need to agree with what others write, but we do need to be kind. So if someone shares, please respect that and be kind. Thanks again for joining, and next week I have a special s'mores party planned, so please tune in at 11 o'clock next Monday morning. Make sure you bring a skewer or a stick, depending on where you're located, a couple marshmallows, graham crackers, any special fillings that you'd like, and then you can use your stovetop, a candle, a sterno, any of those things, and we'll roast some s'mores together. Don't forget that there's going to be fire safety, so make sure you have adult supervision if you need it, and be well, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today.